Don't ever show your face again. You're dead to us, my mom yelled after I refused to pay $95,000 for my sister's scam. I replied, understood, and hung up. Within hours, their frantic calls started. Hey Reddit, my name is Naomi Webb. I'm 30 years old, and for the last 8 years, I have basically been a walking bank account for 3 fully grown adults who kept calling themselves my family. Well, not anymore. Grab your popcorn because this mess did not collapse quietly. And yes, it backfired on them in the most beautiful way. This whole nightmare really started when I was 22, fresh out of a cybersecurity boot camp, still eating frozen dinners in a cheap apartment, still naive enough to believe that if you worked hard and stayed loyal, your family would love you in a healthy way. I landed my first real job making $58,000 a year. To me, it felt huge. To my parents, it apparently felt available. They threw this celebratory dinner for me, and I remember how proud they acted. My mother, Carol, kept smiling so wide her cheeks looked tight. My father, Dennis, raised a glass and told me I was proof that discipline still mattered. My older sister, Danielle, even hugged me that night, which should have warned me immediately because Danielle did not hug unless she wanted something. Sure enough, before dessert even hit the table, my mother casually mentioned Danielle's rent situation in that tone she used when she wanted to sound delicate while setting a trap. Danielle had gotten unfairly fired from yet another job. Except it was not unfair. It never was. She was 27 now and had turned instability into a personality. According to her, regular jobs were for people with no vision. She was always on the edge of some breakthrough, some rebrand, some hustle, some shortcut to wealth that required everyone around her to believe in her more than she believed in herself. Day trading, drop shipping, crypto, NFTs, private mentorships, high-ticket courses taught by people posing in front of cars they probably rented by the hour. Danielle had a dream for every season and a failure for every quarter. And my parents treated every single collapse like a tragic misunderstanding the world had inflicted on their gifted daughter. Meanwhile, I was the responsible one, which sounds flattering until you realize responsible in some families just means easiest to exploit. I make $115,000 now as a senior security analyst, and if that sounds like solid money, it is. It should have changed my life. Instead, it financed theirs. I have been living in the same tiny 600 square foot apartment for 5 years. Same dented cookware. Same couch with the sagging middle cushion. Same laptop I kept promising myself I would replace after one more bonus cycle, one more quarter, one more emergency. Except the emergency was always them. Their condo in Phoenix? In my name. $2,800 a month. Utilities? Me. Dad's car insurance? Me. Family phone plan? Me. Joint credit card my mother treated like a reward program for irresponsibility? Also me. As of late 2024, that card alone averaged about $2,000 a month. DoorDash 3 times a week. Shopping sprees she called self-care. Vape supplies for Danielle. Streaming subscriptions. Random luxury nonsense people buy when they've convinced themselves someone else will handle the bill. And they were right. Because for 8 years, I did. When I finally sat down and added it all up, the number came to roughly $342,000. Not loaned. Gone. Danielle's failed ventures alone had eaten around $67,000. The condo, including deposit and first month and 5 years of rent, had swallowed over $173,000. The rest was the slow bleed. Bills, repairs, card payoffs, emergency cash, medical expenses, insurance, phones, utilities, random "we just need help this month, please" that somehow lasted nearly a decade. If you are wondering how I let it get that far, the answer is simple and ugly. They trained me. Every family has roles. Danielle was the dreamer. My mother was the martyr. My father was the calm translator who made manipulation sound reasonable. And I was the fixer. The daughter who could be counted on. The daughter who would work late, skip vacations, postpone upgrades, eat instant noodles at her desk, and tell herself it was temporary. My coworker Owen had been telling me for 3 years to cut them off. Owen is one of those men who does not waste words. Former Marine. Straight spine. Blunt to the point of emotional property damage. He used to catch me eating ramen at my desk while my family posted brunch photos and smiling selfies from restaurants I was probably paying for. One time he looked at my lunch, then at my phone, then at me and said, "You are bleeding out," while asking them if they need a bigger bucket. I laughed it off. Because when people tell you your family is exploiting you, your first instinct is not relief. It is shame. I kept defending them. They are struggling. They are family. I'm doing okay. But I was not doing okay. At the time this finally blew up, I had about $2,800 in checking and $3,200 in savings. $6,000 total in liquid assets. At 30, after earning a six-figure salary, I drove a 2006 Honda Accord with 180,000 miles on it and kept telling myself I would catch up later. Later is such a dangerous word when you are being used. About 3 months before everything snapped, Danielle got very active in the family group chat. Too active. Posting screenshots, quotes about abundance, clips of flashy men talking about wealth mindset, photos of watches, Lamborghinis, hotel suites, stacks of cash arranged like props in a music video. I knew the pattern. She always advertised before she asked. This time it was a crypto trading mentorship program. Not a course, a mentorship, which, in scam language, usually means the same nonsense with a bigger price tag and more men calling themselves wolves. Still, my parents were eating it up. My mother kept saying Danielle had finally found her calling. My father said she was maturing. That word nearly made me choke. Danielle was not maturing. She was rehearsing, and they were helping her build the stage. The night it all detonated was a Wednesday, around 9 p.m. I was at my kitchen table with my third energy drink, finishing security audit notes from home, when the group chat erupted. Danielle dropped a giant message full of fire emojis, rocket emojis, and enough fake confidence to make my skin itch. Big news. She had been accepted into some elite mastermind called Crypto Crown Capital, or Crypto Kings, or some ridiculous name meant to sound exclusive and expensive. Apparently, this was the real deal. 97% success rate. Private algorithms. Millionaire mentors. Housing included for a 6-week intensive in Miami. People making their money back in a month. Lives transformed. Legacies built. The kind of language that sounds persuasive only if you need it to. My mother replied almost instantly. So proud of you, sweetheart. My father followed with, "This is the opportunity you've been waiting for." I stared at the screen for a long moment, then typed the only question that mattered. "How much is it?" Danielle answered right away. $95,000, but that includes housing, direct mentorship, proprietary strategy access, and lifetime support. $95,000. I actually leaned back in my chair and laughed once, but there was nothing funny in it. I told her, as calmly as I could, that it was a lot of money and I could not do that. Not wouldn't, couldn't. The chat went silent. 2 full minutes. Then my phone rang. Mom. The second I answered, I knew this was already a trial and I had already been convicted. What do you mean you can't? She snapped. I tried to keep my voice steady. I explained that I was already paying their rent, utilities, insurance, phone plan, and the credit card. I explained that I did not have $95,000 sitting around. I explained that I would have to borrow it, and I was not willing to take on debt for another one of Danielle's schemes. The silence on her end lasted half a second. Then came the performance. "You make over $100,000 a year, Naomi. Do you hear yourself? Your sister has been struggling for years trying to find her path, and now that she finally has a real chance, you want to slam the door in her face?" A real chance. As if I had not financed every fake chance before this one. I said, "I don't have the money." She shot back, "Then take out a loan." My hand tightened around the phone. "For Danielle?" "For family," she said, like that settled everything. Then came the sacrifice speech. How much they had sacrificed raising me. How family shows up. How selfish the world had made people. How cruel success becomes when it makes you forget where you came from. I almost laughed. Almost. Because I had come from them. And I had spent 8 years paying for the privilege. I reminded her, quietly this time, that I had given them over $300,000 already. She said something that made my whole body go cold. "We never asked you to do that." It was such an outrageous lie that for a second I could not even speak. 8 years of calls. 8 years of urgent texts. 8 years of, "Just this once. We're in a bind. Your sister is trying. You know your father's situation. Please don't make us beg." But suddenly none of that had happened. Suddenly I was the unstable one for remembering it. Then Dad got on the line, doing what he always did. Softening the knife. "Naomi, try to see this from Danielle's perspective. She's working hard to build something." I closed my eyes. "Dad, she has never worked hard a day in her life. Every idea I've funded has crashed. I've lost over $60,000 on her alone." He sighed, disappointed, almost weary, as if I were exhausting him by resisting. "You fail until you succeed. That's how it works." "Not on my dime," I said. There was some muffled arguing on their end. Then Mom came back, and her voice had changed. Cold. Flat. Dangerous. "You know what? Fine. Be selfish. But don't come crying to us when you're old and alone because you chose money over family. We're done. You're dead to us. Don't ever show your face again." Then she hung up. I sat there staring at my phone while the pulse in my neck hammered. Dead to them. Because I would not hand over $95,000 for a scam wrapped in luxury branding. The group chat exploded. Danielle wrote a full essay about how disappointed she was in me, how I had always been jealous of her, how I never believed in her potential. My mother said I was tearing the family apart. My father said I was being immature and short-sighted. Then Danielle sent the last message. "Hope you enjoy your lonely life, and when I'm rich, don't come asking me for anything." I looked around my apartment. The cheap lamp, the worn rug, the outdated laptop, the refrigerator humming too loud because I had put off replacing it. I had funded their comfort so long I had forgotten what mine might feel like. And they were calling me selfish. Something in me did not break. It hardened. I typed one message. Understood. Then I put the phone face down on the table. I did not sleep that night. I sat in my kitchen with cold coffee and my laptop open, pulling up 8 years of receipts. Venmo history, bank transfers, lease documents, credit card statements, utility payments, insurance records, phone bills, emergency withdrawals. I opened a fresh spreadsheet and titled it, Financial Documentation. By 4 in the morning, I had every number laid out in rows and columns so neat they looked almost clinical. $342,000. 8 years, my 20s, burned slowly enough that I had mistaken it for love. Then I did something I should have done a long time ago. I Googled family financial abuse. I sat there in the blue light of my screen reading article after article about financial exploitation, guilt as leverage, escalating dependence, emotional punishment for setting boundaries, making one family member responsible for everyone else's lifestyle, threats when the money stops. Every paragraph felt like someone had been spying on my life. Owen had been right. I was not helping them. I was being drained by them. At 7 in the morning, I texted him. "Do you remember telling me to cut them off?" He replied in under a minute. "Please tell me you finally did." I stared at the screen, then typed back. "Not yet, but I'm about to." I got to work on less than 2 hours of sleep, running on caffeine, humiliation, and the kind of adrenaline that makes everything look too sharp. My eyes burned. My shoulders ached. But under all of that was something stranger. Relief, not complete relief, not the peaceful kind. This was rougher than that, harsher. Like finally setting down a weight you had carried so long, your spine no longer remembered what upright was supposed to feel like. At 8 o'clock sharp, I started cutting cords. The condo lease came first. It was in my name, because of course it was. My mother had called me practical when she convinced me to sign it 5 years earlier, said landlords responded better to stable applicants, said it was only until they got back on their feet. They never planned to get back on their feet. Why would they, when they had me? The property management office answered on the second ring. I stepped into an empty conference room at work, shut the door, and told the woman on the line I needed to give notice. She pulled up the file. "Yes, Ms. Webb, I see the lease here. There will be an early termination penalty equal to 2 months' rent. $5,600. I stared through the glass wall of the conference room at my coworkers moving between desks and thought about the $173,600 I had already paid to keep my parents and Danielle comfortable in a condo I had never once lived in. "Fine," I said, "process it." My voice barely shook. Next came the joint credit card. That one stung in a more personal way because I remembered exactly how my mother had talked me into it. She had said it would help her rebuild her credit, said she felt embarrassed asking me for money all the time, said this would create structure. What it created was access, unsupervised, shameless monthly access. I called the company, verified the account, and closed it on the spot. The current balance was $3,840. I paid it off right there because I refused to let my credit die with them. Then I removed my payment method from Dad's car insurance. 7-day grace period. After that, it was their problem. The family phone plan took less than 10 minutes. 4 lines. Mine stayed. The other 3 disappeared. I pictured Danielle staring at her dead screen later that afternoon, probably mid-rant, probably certain the universe was attacking her again. I canceled the streaming platforms, the grocery delivery membership, the premium cable, the cloud storage upgrade my father insisted he needed, despite barely knowing how to open email attachments. I transferred the last $2,100 from the joint checking account I still had with my mother into my personal account, then drove to the bank on my lunch break and closed it in person. The teller asked if I wanted to leave a small balance to keep it active. No, I said. I want it closed. I surprised even myself with how calm I sounded. By noon, every financial tie I could cut in a single day was gone. Every automatic payment, every shared service, every convenient little artery they had used to feed themselves from my life. Done. I sat in my car in the bank parking lot with both hands on the steering wheel and let out a breath so deep it felt like it had been trapped inside me for years. For the first time in nearly a decade, my money had nowhere to go but back to me. That realization made me lightheaded. I checked my phone. Nothing. No calls yet. No texts. No explosion. They did not know. Not yet. I drove back to work almost smiling. Almost. Because deep down I knew the silence was temporary. People like my family only stay calm while the machine is still working. The first crack came at 2 in the afternoon. I was walking a new analyst through a report when my phone started vibrating in my pocket. Mom. I let it ring. It stopped. Started again almost immediately. Mom again. Then Dad. Then Danielle. Then Mom. I kept my face neutral and continued explaining access controls as my phone buzzed against my thigh like a trapped insect. By the time I got back to my desk, I had 8 missed calls and 11 texts. I opened them one by one. Mom, why is the credit card declining? Fix it. Danielle, what did you do to my phone? Dad, call your mother. She's upset. Mom, this is not funny. Danielle, are you seriously doing this over one conversation? Dad, Naomi, please be reasonable. Reasonable, that word again. In my family, reasonable always meant do what we want without making us feel bad about it. I put my phone face down and got back to work. At 4 o'clock, the panic had turned from confusion to fury. Mom, property management called. What did you say to them? Danielle, you are so petty it's actually disgusting. Dad, this has gone too far. We need to talk like adults. Mom, you cannot do this to your own parents. Danielle, all because you're bitter and jealous. Jealous. Of what exactly? The failed schemes? The chronic dependence? The emotional blackmail with bonus entitlement? I almost replied just to ask. Instead, I locked my phone and kept going. At 5:30, Owen stopped by my desk, took one look at my screen lighting up every few seconds, and leaned against the cubicle wall. They found out? I nodded. All of it? All of it. He grinned slowly, almost proudly. Well, he said, that train finally left the station. After work, he took me to a bar 2 blocks away from the office. Nothing fancy. Dark wood, cold beer, decent fries, music low enough to hear yourself think. I had not realized how badly I needed neutral territory until I sat down and felt the knot between my shoulder blades loosen a fraction. Owen lifted his glass. To boundaries. I clinked mine against his. To freedom, I said. My phone lay face down between us, vibrating every few minutes against the table. At some point, he nodded toward it. You gonna look? I did. 34 missed calls. 67 texts. I scrolled. My mother had moved into victim mode at full speed. She could not believe I was punishing her like this after everything she had done for me. I was destroying the family. She was physically shaking. Her blood pressure was up. If something happened to her, it would be on me. Danielle's messages were less sophisticated. She called me a psycho, a miserable witch, a pathetic control freak. Said I had always hated seeing her chase bigger things because I was too boring and scared to dream. That one actually made me laugh. Owen looked over. Good one? She says I'm boring and scared because I don't want to fund a $95,000 crypto cult. He nearly choked on his drink. Your sister is a parody written by someone with too much free time. Dad's texts were their own kind of manipulation. Calm. Measured. Disappointed. He said Mom was crying. Said Danielle was spiraling. Said the situation was hurting everyone, and all I had to do was call and talk it through. As if talking had ever changed anything. As if every boundary I had ever attempted with them had not been negotiated, softened, guilted, and folded back into compliance. Then I saw a text from Aunt Pamela, my mother's older sister. Unlike the rest of them, Pamela had always felt like someone standing just outside the family weather system, not close enough to stop the storm, but far enough away to know it was not normal. Pamela, your mother called me sobbing. What is going on? I stared at the message for a long moment, then typed back. Ask her why I cut them off. Ask her how much money I've given them over 8 years. Ask her what she said when I told her I couldn't afford $95,000 for Danielle's latest scam. I hit send. Owen watched my face while I typed. Extended family entering the chat? Apparently. He shook his head. Good. Sunlight helps. At 7 o'clock, my phone rang from a number I did not recognize. Phoenix area code. I almost ignored it, but something made me answer. Hello? Ma'am, this is Officer Jensen with Phoenix Police Department. I'm following up on a welfare check request. I closed my eyes. Of course she did. Of course. My mother had called the police to claim concern for my well-being because I had stopped funding her life. I pressed my fingers to my forehead and said as evenly as I could, I'm fine. I'm at a bar having a drink with a friend after work. There was a pause. Do you have any intention of harming yourself or anyone else? No. Are you in danger? No. Another pause, longer this time. Then he asked carefully, would you mind explaining the situation? So I did. Not every detail, not the full 8-year history, just enough. I told him I had financially supported my parents and older sister for years. Told him they asked me for $95,000 for yet another one of my sister's business schemes. Told him my mother called me selfish, said I was dead to them, and hung up. Told him I responded by closing the accounts and services I paid for. The officer was silent for a beat. Then he said, that sounds like you're making a healthy choice for yourself. I actually looked at the phone for a second, stunned. He continued, I'll document that I made contact and that you are safe. If there's continued harassment, keep records. Thank you, I said quietly. When I hung up, Owen was staring at me. Did your mother just call the police for a fake welfare check because you stopped paying her bills? Yes. He leaned back and let out a long breath. Naomi, your family is clinically exhausting. I laughed, but it caught in my throat, because underneath the absurdity was something darker. They were escalating. When rage did not work, they reached for authority. When guilt did not work, they reached for public shame. I should have known they were just getting warmed up. At 8 o'clock, the extended family group chat exploded. I had muted that chat years earlier because it was mostly chain messages, birthday gifs, and passive-aggressive updates disguised as prayer requests. But that night, it lit up like an emergency signal. My mother had posted a long, dramatic paragraph saying I was having some kind of breakdown, that I had cut off all contact, canceled their housing, shut off their phones, and refused to answer anyone. She said the family was extremely concerned. She said I was not acting like myself. She said she feared for my mental health. It was so calculated I actually admired the craftsmanship. She was not just trying to punish me. She was trying to frame the story first. Relatives started chiming in with confusion, concern, prayer hands, question marks. Then Aunt Pamela wrote a single message that changed the temperature of the room. Pamela, Carol, is it true you told Naomi she was dead to you because she wouldn't give Danielle $95,000? The chat went silent. I could practically hear my mother scrambling. A minute later, she wrote, you don't understand the full situation. Naomi has been acting very strangely lately. We're worried. That did it. I had been quiet all day. I had ignored the insults, the calls, the guilt. But I was done letting her write the script. So I opened the spreadsheet on my phone, converted the documentation into a clean PDF, and typed one message. Here is the full situation. They asked me for $95,000 for Danielle's newest investment program. I said no, because I have already given them approximately $342,000 over the last 8 years, while covering their rent, bills, insurance, phones, and debt. My mother told me I was dead to them. I took her at her word and stopped paying. No breakdown, just boundaries, receipts attached. Then I attached the PDF, every transaction, every amount, every year of my life laid out in black and white. I hit send. For a few seconds, nothing happened. Then the read receipts started appearing. One after another. My Aunt Linda, my cousin Harper, Pamela, an uncle I had not spoken to in almost a year. Then the messages started flooding in so fast I could not process them. Oh my God. Is this real? Carol, what is this? You took that much from her? Danielle, why would you ask for $95,000? I did not stay to watch. I exited the group chat. Then I started blocking numbers. My mother first, then Dad, then Danielle, then any relative who had texted me without asking a single question before accusing me of cruelty. I was not interested in debate. I had spent 8 years explaining myself to people committed to misunderstanding me. Across from me, Owen raised his eyebrows. You dropped the receipts? I dropped the receipts. He smiled. Proud of you. I looked down at my glass. The ice had started melting. My phone had finally gone quiet. Not silent forever, just quiet for now. And in that small pocket of stillness, I felt something settle inside me. Not joy, not revenge. Something steadier. Self-respect. When I got home that night, I did not turn on the television. I did not doom scroll. I did not reread their messages. I went straight to my kitchen table, opened my banking app, and stared at the numbers. Checking, $1,847. Savings, $3,200. Total liquid cash, $5,047. It was not much. Objectively, it was embarrassing for someone with my income. But for the first time in years, it was mine. Mine to keep. Mine to grow. Mine to use for a future that did not include financing other people's delusions. I opened a new spreadsheet. This one I titled Financial Goals. Emergency fund by April. New laptop by February. Down payment savings by the end of 2026. Vacation fund. Retirement catch-up. Things normal 30-year-olds get to plan when their entire adult life is not being siphoned through a family guilt machine. I sat there for a long time just looking at those words. My future, not theirs. Mine. That night I slept harder than I had in years. Not peacefully, not fully, but deeply enough to dream of doors closing. And in the morning, when I woke up and reached for my phone, I found 17 new messages from numbers I did not recognize. I blocked every one of them without reading. Then I got up, made coffee, and went to work. By 10:30, my boss, Angela, caught me in the hallway. She lowered her voice and asked, "Naomi, did your mother call the office yesterday?" Of course she had. I felt heat climb up my neck. "I'm so sorry." Angela shook her head. "Reception transferred the message to me. She said it was an emergency involving your mental health." For one awful second, I just stood there humiliated. My mother had not been content to harass me privately. She wanted to infect my job too. I took a breath and said, "I recently cut off contact with my family for personal reasons. They're reacting badly. I'm okay. Embarrassed, but okay." Angela studied me for a moment. Then she said gently, "You seem more okay than most people who say they're okay." That almost made me smile. "I think I am," I admitted. She nodded. "Let us know if you need building security involved." Let us know. Not what did you do to upset them. Not are you sure you're not overreacting. Just let us know. Support that clean felt almost painful after years of manipulation dressed up as concern. At lunch, my phone rang again from another unknown number. Voicemail. This time it was Aunt Pamela. Her voice was low and tired. She said she had seen the PDF. Said she had no idea it was that bad.